Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's meetup. Today, we are joined by Bren Newman, a seasoned technology leader with years of experience in IT and software development, specifically within the gaming industry. He is also a longtime friend of Jay's. Thank you so much for being here today, Bren. And for today's discussion, he is going to be drawing on his experience over the years, taking us through specifically today how AI is being used in the gaming space. He'll look at game development, player experience, and some opportunities within the industry. So before we begin, I do want to say the session is being recorded and the recording is available on YouTube. We always encourage participation, so if you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand or drop them in the chat. With that said, I'm going to hand over to Bren.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thank you for the introduction. I have been in the industry a while. I've known Jay for a while as well. I actually started my programming journey at Sanlam in South Africa in about 1987. Went to Joburg, worked for Rennie's Travel, wrote Forex systems and booking systems. Then joined SQL Technologies and really got into the database aspect. Joined Microsoft on the database side, and we created SQL Server 6570 2005. Came back to South Africa with Microsoft and joined another company called Derivco. I joined because it felt like the very old Microsoft. It had that same ambience around it. The development techniques were similar. It was a 1,000-person dev shop, and they were doing incredible things. It was really around online gaming, and they were very secretive about that back then because all the rules and regulations weren't in place. So they didn't really want to go and discuss this, but they were doing more transactions than Visa. I had been involved with SQL Server at NASDAQ and London Stock Exchange, a number of other places. So, wow, I was enthralled. I was the CTO and then group CTO. The company became much larger and expanded into various markets. And we got to like 2,000 something people. It was great. We have these dev shops across the world, kind of splintered out into sportsbook. The sportsbook was amazing because we were entering something that had been around for 100 years. Okay, not obviously digital, but when entering, the founder of microgaming back then said, well, we're going to enter the sports book, and basically the board was like, no way, we can't enter this thing. And we went in with this unique selling proposition of speed. So firstly, we're going to focus on mobile sports, and we're going to focus on in-play. So while the game is running, present the player with all types of markets that they can wager on. But to do that, it's mobile-based, and then also we're going to need to be able to have someone place a wager quickly, get paid out quickly, do risk assessment quickly, get the odds to them quickly, and it was an awesome project, and that was for a company called Betway, probably known in South Africa, and they expanded across the world, a large UK-based originally organization, and they really grew based on this and offered various things, and eventually listed on the New York Stock Exchange as SGHC, Supergroup Holdings, and they're doing very well, so that was great. I then ventured, staying in the gaming industry, I ventured into the industry of, well, can we take these online games? We had a massive bouquet of games, more than 600 games. And how do we get these online games to run on a EGM? The EGM is just a slot machine, a one-armed bandit. And how do we get it to run with all the magic that we know about online? Well, we tried, and we kind of died on that one for various reasons. There's some politics, not knowing the market that you're really entering, which is land-based, very different to online. The cost of land-based is huge. One machine is at a low cost, about $8,000, and you're going to need at least 5,000 of them. You're going to need to roll it out onto the floors. The guys on the very top, they want the latest technology. The mostly influential and folk that own the casino are the casino floor managers. They need to buy into this. And then there's the challenge of time to market. There was a process that's been running for a very long time in land-based in terms of how to get the games live, how to monitor them, and the integration cost. Finally, that dream was not successful, and we kind of moved on a bit. I then I knew a lot about the back-end services of gaming, so writing random number generators and all the services involved. I looked after a few game companies that physically developed mobile games. I wanted to know a little bit more about that. And I have an artistic background. I wanted to kind of broaden that. So a friend of mine gave me an opportunity to work with a team in Vegas, an incredible team. They actually developed the games, not just the game services, but the math, the visuals, art and sound. And it was inspiring. It really was cool. So that's where I got that information from. And I've learned from there. Each time it's just sort of padding. What's strange is, stuff that 2 years ago I thought was incredible. If you go to ChatGPT or any of the Copilot stuff and you ask, how would you use the following AI? It's actually start speaking about the things that you thought was so incredible 2 years ago. So the progress in the AI side in gaming has already been incredible. Okay, so I need to explain what's out there. The first thing is gaming is highly regulated. In the beginning, online gaming itself was, well, dodgy. You had these strange casinos that would pop up based in these islands or some other place. And I would say they weren't legit. The random number generator wasn't that random, and bad things would happen. Now it's highly regulated. The US has now opened the markets after closing the doors in 2008. So we pulled out of that market. Now we're back in, and each state has challenged the Wire Act, which is place a bet over the phone or any type of mechanism. And they challenged and won, and there was New Jersey. And now all the states are basically regulating online gaming to generate tax revenue. It's massive. Massive number of transactions per second. Your system better be able to scale to that. With that challenge, though, comes the number of competitors that have games. So the casino manager, both floor manager and the land-based and the operator, known as a casino owner online, have a choice, a wealth of games just flooding in every single day. And they need to make these decisions on which games they need to put onto the promo page and promote and stuff like that. So it's becoming huge. Online gaming is everything. It's from slots to table games like poker to roulette to even live dealers, where we had studios of folk and they would visually be transmitted to folk, and they can bet behind folk and do a lot of things, but it consumes everything. And then sportsbook, bingo, haven't put that down. There are game providers that provide that to the online casino. A lot of these online casinos, they're really just marketing folk that understand how to take a game and market it to the right people. Slots for online games is about 94 to 97% RTP, return to player. So that sounds like when you're playing one game, you got, if it's 97, you've got 97% chance of winning. No. It just means that 97% of total money in average across 1 million people is going back to players. A very small subset of the players are going to win. The others are funding. 3% is going and shared to the casino owner. A portion of that goes to the folk that develop the games. Land-based, a little bit different. That's brick and mortar. Their costs are very high. We can imagine parking lots, parking attendance at the machines, physical machines, floor space, heating, aircon, the list goes on. So theirs is realistically between 87% and 92% RTP, which makes sense. But they also have very strong loyalty systems, and they've been around for a very long time outside of the actual slot machine. There are other items that you can do in that brick and mortar casino, from restaurants to hotels to other entertainment options. So that's the market. That's what's out there. It's an exciting market. It's real-time action. Developing games. The basic construct of a games team is a game designer, the game designer who comes up with these games, vast experience in terms of what the player wants and how to put that together, because it's a package of things. It's the art. The artwork itself requires artists to go and put this artwork together. Mathematicians, incredibly key in terms of getting the math right of a particular game. When certain things appear, how many times you win, what the payouts are, what the bet sizes are. If it's a jackpot, how do you entice people to put more money into that jackpot? How do you fund the jackpot? Incredibly important. Animators, no longer is it just the visuals of if it was slots, these things kind of moving up and down. There's a ton of stuff happening on the screen now. Lots of animations, lots of very beautiful visuals and 3D characters interacting with you and reacting to your wins. Massive amount of work there. And then the developers that need to code all of this and make sure that it runs on various devices. From a laptop to a tablet, it must work. And it needs to integrate with both a download kind of thing versus also on the browser. Sound is incredibly important. If you play a game without sound, your experience is very different. If you're watching a movie and that movie is a war movie and there's lots of sound happening and action, you take away that sound, you put something else there like some calming music, the movie has changed. So the same thing with sound. How do you interact with the player and draw attention to various things via sound? It's not just complementary, it's absolutely necessary and very difficult. QA, as I just said, there's so much happening. You need to fit this all together, and there's lots of rules and regulations that you need to comply with to get this game out. Tons of that stuff. So that job is really important. And localization used to be very small from the stuff that I used to work with in SQL Server. But now it's incredibly important. Each country obviously has multiple languages, but those multiple languages describe various things, like a button, like a bet size, slightly differently. And more than that, they need to be able to have, like France, only French. So if there's some voiceover, it needs to be in French. If there's a command that blurts up, it needs to be in French. If there's a 3D character and that 3D character starts singing a song, it needs to be in French. Same with Germany and stuff like that. So you have to watch out. And then program and release management. As a program manager, you need to make sure this is coordinated and you can get it out there. But because you're developing so fast, it's got some unique challenges. And then when to release and who to release to. Marketing, well, these games are already incredibly bright and beautiful. How do you go and make that even more presentable to sell to the online game folk that own the casinos? Important, really important job. And that is complemented then by sales. Those sales folk have a very interesting job trying to get their games on various casinos and, more importantly, to be launched on their promo page. So what's the software development life cycle here? Well, it's iterative. So these arrows are not only in one direction, but there's research, performance, and trend analysis. In the old days, Google was your friend. The artist would get out there, look for various pictures, modify those photos and pictures and put them together. It would take a long time to get all these things. That's changed. So first is research, performance analysis, trend analysis, what's doing well, what type of games are doing well. Is it three real slots that are doing well again, or is it 5 real slots? Are there games, little games on the side? There's research. After that, is it a new game, completely new game that I'm developing that's going to require new math, a new service that runs the game? Or is it a clone? Is it an enhanced clone? So it's a clone, but I'm going to change 50% of it. Is it a custom game? So I'm creating a game that's branded for a specific operator. Okay. Is it well, then I need to go through this process of prototyping. Prototyping used to take a long time, but AI, it has revolutionized that industry. Then you have to pitch the game and the math behind that game. When there's thumbs up, you get a design document and you start doing functional specs, different years, normal standard software development practices, great development test, and certification. Getting through the certification process can be a challenge. The rules change often, but if you break the rule, the whole process starts again. You need to get that right. And then the strategic release. You can't just throw this thing out there, burn a CD and get it out there. You've got a lot of games probably sitting on the shelf. Which games do you want to develop when and in what bouquet of games? And what is your target audience? Very important. On the AI side of art, well, this has been a godsend. It's been a hugely positive productivity impact. There are challenges. There's been challenges with Gen AI around legal challenges. What is the source of the art and things like that? So there's various risks that one has to accept by using that to generate your art. But of course, there's lots of mechanisms to take that piece of art, manipulate it yourself, record how many times you've actually made these changes to show that, yeah, you might have started off with some design kind of moving forward, but the stuff that you have now is very different to what you started with. There's mechanisms to do that, and there's randomization techniques built into multiple Gen AI tools that you can pass art from one to the other in a closed loop system. People don't want to share their art. That's made a massive difference. And there's so many players in this game. Adobe's always been in this game. They've got Firefly, DALL-E, Midjourney, the one I know pretty well. Leonardo AI just started using, and even Microsoft has got into the game there with MAI, Image One. So they just got into that game as well. The prototyping cycles that used to have teams of people work on a prototype for maybe a month, maybe 2 months, maybe 3 months, present it, not quite what they want, they would start again, throw it away. This has now been radically optimized from months to a week. You can imagine what that does in terms of timelines. And then production art, right now, a lot of the art is probably coming from Gen AI and then heavily modified. There's a lot of stuff around photorealistic 3D characters. There's incredible stuff around taking one particular item and making different variations of it, even different angles. That was very difficult. Artists had to work really hard. Now they can render hundreds of those in one day instead of in 3 months. So massive. Animation, progress, it's really tough in terms of being able to take something and make it move. There are tools out there. I wouldn't say they are used as much as the art in a game, but it's starting to get there. There's some handy tools that I put on the screen over there. They're all moving forward nicely. Radical Motion's pretty good one. But there are big expectations, and I do expect in the next 2 years that a lot more animation techniques and tools will be used in production. There are some things that are fantastic, like 3D character generation. So you want some form of person that can interact with the player, and you need to be able to render that particular model quickly. Incredible stuff. It makes slight changes very quickly and add maybe a design on the clothing or whatever. Man, it's been incredible. Sound has been a challenge. There's a human challenge, artists specifically on the music side, difficult to change and critique what they're doing, but it is now moving forward in terms of productivity and enhancement. If you look at the sound of a game, we are talking about like film level, blockbuster hit level music scores that are being produced and shipped with games. So there's big expectations in the future of being able to easily change the stuff and maybe even have it dynamically driven based on the time of day and stuff like that. You can do some stuff. Starting to add value. QA stuff, all the big IDEs, the integrated development environments, Visual Studio, blah, 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 are all starting to, well, they've all had these amazing techniques to auto-generate code that can test. Great. But we're talking about gaming, which is extremely visual-based. So give me more tools that can look for items that are overlaid, items that are not spinning correctly, items that are out of sync, all those types of stuff. That's coming along nicely now because it can see what's on the screen. So there's a few things that I've listed there that you can use. The expectations are massive, but I wouldn't say it's fully used right now. It's used in the process, but not to the point that we expect it to be used. So probably another couple of years, and I think we'll be amazed. Localization. As I said, many languages, these online games go everywhere, and you need to be able to offer it in local languages and subsets of that. There are terms that sound the same, but not quite the same. So you have to use basic terms and terms that are standard across the industry, but also localized to that particular language in that particular country. And as I said, places like France, everything needs to be localized. Even if there's a character singing a tune, it needs to be localized to that specific language. So there are some AI tools that are just incredible. Dangerous, I know people are going to talk about that, but dangerous, but incredible. So that's voice cloning. So you could clone my voice and my tempo of speech, and while I'm speaking English, you can change that to Portuguese, to French, and whatever. And it'll still sound like me with the same nuances of my voice, but in a different language. And if I can do that quickly, that would be incredible. And there's some nice tools around that as well. Starting to add real value there and helping getting to market quickly. So program and release management, not going to go into this all too much, but you can imagine trying to be a program manager in this turmoil of events. And so all the releases that have come out from Microsoft and everything else, from things like your calendar, automatically create notes and assignment of tasks and stuff like that, summarize particular documents that are very long for me to read, go and do some market research, come back with it. If I ship this game now, what's the impact of my developers on this side? What's the impact of my artists? So those tools in terms of AI have revolutionized the way we work. Those folk that use it have got 1,000% productivity gains. One of the most important things and often forgotten is it's great to release a product by when. So you need to prioritize which game goes to the right people and when, because there's genres of games, but certain things become in fashion and out of fashion in different places of the world. So how do you release it to those places at the right time? And again, the operators have a choice of games. How do you get them to take your game? And then there's AI within games.
Hi, sorry. I wanted to touch on some things that you mentioned earlier about lab-based gaming. And you were talking about how high the cost is, and then talking about how many advantages they are to just using AI and in a digital space. But I also wonder, because there are still many land-based gaming businesses, what is the experience that they're offering to people who visit their branches that you actually can't get in a digital space? And does that produce enough of a benefit for them to maintain that, or will all gaming just become online eventually?
No. So let's start with your last question. Will all gaming become online? Probably not. there's a certain experience one gets when you go into a casino. From those confusing floors that you can never, once you enter the casino, can't find the exit, to that ambience of the sound in the background of people winning and talking and chatting. Some of it's false. That there's an ambience sitting in front of a machine that's got a 12-foot screen that's bending over you and vibrating, and the button that's massive, and people are coming behind you. There's a massive entertainment factor that land-based brings. I mean, huge. And obviously, you leave the seat, and not only is there a whole bunch of other choices of games to play, but there's also other things to do. You can go to the restaurant, have a party, whatever it is. There's this entertainment factor that's around it, and that's not going to go away. I do, however, believe that the types of games that are on these machines, generally it's single-purpose game on a machine. I think it's going to change. I think very quickly you're going to be able to change the game such that it's a different game, that the user can choose various things. So you can imagine things where it's personality-driven or previous, what I know about that person. If it's loyalty card-based, I know which games you play. I know how much you spend. I know your velocity of play, how many times you hit that button, and what time of day you play. I think I know what type of theme games you like. And if I can figure that all out, then I can make that game that's on the screen, any screen, including mobile and online, targeted to you, specific to you. Difficult right now in land-based. They can't switch things around very quickly, and the regulation and method of installation is difficult right now. Where online, you're directly connected, so it's simple to do. But no, This is going to move forward. And the interaction time that you have with the player while he's sitting at a screen is pretty long, but you know when they get up and you know when they're leaving. So you can interact while they're going from machine to machine or from place to place. Massive amount of interaction points and nudge points that you can point them in certain directions. But then again, the same as sports. That's land-based. I do actually talk about land-based a little bit later. But even sports, one could kind of jump in and do various things. I've got a slide that will cover that moving forward.
I've never been gambling, so I don't really know how it works. A way to identify who the person is, unless they have a membership card or something they scan, other than their cell phone, their device they have on them all the time. If there was a way that land-based businesses could connect to some service that could send them real-time messages as they pass a certain machine or restaurant and recommend something to them, it can all become one cohesive system in my mind.
That mobile device you always have with you, and you can interact and nudge as folk are going through various experiences. And that's the most powerful thing. But that can also be used online while they're playing. There are multiple devices sometimes. As I started, it's never going to go away. In fact, I think it's going to revolutionize the way people play. They've already changed the entertainment of land-based to be family-based. Come to Vegas. It's a family destination with stuff. But now we're going to change the way we interact with you. There are other ways. So we had looked at other ways to folk that don't have a loyalty card. So if you walk up to a machine, you don't have a card. You've now taken some cash, bought a little ticket, stuck the ticket in that's got a value of money on there, and you started betting against that value of money that's on the ticket. Cool. But I don't know you, so I can't do anything personalized to you. But what happens if, with your consent, I had a video of you, and as you sat down on that machine, I looked at Nicola. I know nothing about Nicola. You are not in a database, you're not registered, but I know this face and the lines about Nicola. So I do an identification lookup on Face ID, and it comes back person number 135A5, say whatever, and I've got an ID that, hey, this person has played a machine or this game before. Don't know much about you, but I do know your play history. So so that's one way that one could actually interact. You can also do it, but there are some legal challenges around putting little micro cameras on devices. But you can imagine you could take this to another level of experience. Are you happy? Are you sad? Are you paying attention or just hitting the button? Some people don't want to be kind of taken out of that sort of routine. So there's many ways one can interact, but the best way is the phone, a device that's physically on you. How do you interact with that? And you can do that by vibrations and a whole bunch of stuff. But let me jump in, because I think there are other items that help with this. Yeah, so there's AI within games. If you look at poker and blackjack, there's always been these poker bots that you could support your poker network to make sure you have enough players. But now you have player AI bots. So the player itself owns these bots, and that bot can go via instruction, play these other tables and stuff like that. Blackjack has an optimal strategy, a strategy that won't allow you to win, but to play longer. There's also the ability for the operator, being the casino owner, to know whether you're just a lucky player, whether you're a really professional player, for example, poker. So you know what to do when you hand it two aces, pocket aces. What does that person do? Not just based on win-lose. Are you a winner? Are you a loser? Well, you could be lucky. Poker is a lot of game of skill. I know people don't say that, but it's a huge amount of skill. And then there's luck when you have to do the river and stuff like that. But the way you play can categorize you as the type of player. If you know the type of player, you can be very specific in your target marketing to that person or that group of players. You can do such things as maybe rank them. You can put them into various groups. You can use them to entice other people just by moving them across the table. So another way that AI can jump in at the real-time level even to see what's happening. Sports betting, well, sports betting's gone crazy. It's in the US now. If you go to a barber and you have your haircut, you will be amazed on the stats, sports stats that US folks speak about. They are incredibly knowledgeable. And AI apps are starting to help with that, starting to help with predictions, optimal fantasy team selection, which player is doing better, which one should I do, all this type of stuff. These things, these sports companions are just exploding out there. And I think it's just going to get better. Player mood detection. So you can imagine an AI that could know you're not having a good time. I thought this was an IP about 2 years ago, but yeah, you do a quick little search and ChatGPT will tell you about how to implement these things. But basically, games are coded such that you have an experience. Those that have a great experience play the game. Even though you're not winning, you're still having a fantastic experience. You've got pixie dust flying around. You've got the reels that are popping up. You hit the bonus screen often. You have near misses. But sometimes you're unlucky. And the game doesn't go the way it's supposed to go because of randomizations. So hit rates, like how many times you hit a bonus screen, visual rewards, you haven't seen enough fairy dust. AI and mood detection can be based off that and immediately interact in some shape or form.
Rhythm is also a space where a lot of experimentation is going on, because sometimes you just don't know. So you keep on testing alternatives. It's not just about A/B, it's multivariate, experiential, interaction, behavioral testing.
Absolutely. I mean, we call it A/B testing, but it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, S. It's the ability to put out these multiple feelers, listen to it, understand why these are doing better than others, make those modifications, branch off, and now you get another set of A, B, C. Everyone's doing that. And it's an incredible and fascinating way to understand the player and the play experience. Because if I have a good experience at a particular casino, that's my lucky casino. If I have a good experience with that specific game or that type of game, or even that genre of game, I like jungle games, then I know and I've categorized that that's the way to go. I'll talk about brand management because that kind of falls into that.
We have a question in the chat from Mo.
Yeah.
How can land-based casinos leverage their physical properties to drive patrons to their online operations?
Yeah, so I think it's at an interaction point. If you're playing a game, sometimes that game is my favorite game. The easiest way is please have that favorite game on my mobile device. And often, I think pretty large mistakes have been made is at some point, not immediately, and it should be immediately after playing the game, or even possibly during, saying that you can enjoy this online experience, extend the experience online with a specific game. Sometimes, though, the game is too different from the actual game that you've now experienced in a real world. So the first part is interacting with a customer if they've had a good experience about the game online. See if they played it in that particular land-based casino, somehow nudge them to say, hey, it's available online as well. That's the way we'll know. Then there's this right bonusing, which I'll talk about later. You need to incentivize them. Why do I want to go there? Well, I need to give you the correct bonus, not just everybody gets $10, a specific bonus for me that I know is the right amount to entice you to play my game online. So that little pop-up that comes up and says, claim 40 rewards or whatever it is, reward points, needs to be for me and for me only. It's kind of like sports, right? In some places, this is outlawed, but I can create odds specifically for a group of players. If I know a particular group of players bet in a certain way on a certain team, then I can create an odds package specifically for them. And it's the same with this. If I can get a bonus specifically to them, or a group of games, hey, I see you've enjoyed the Nile Princess. We have a whole bunch of Egyptian games, very similar, we think that you would like. That experience of moving from what you see in front of you to playing online has to be easy to do. But then when you play in the game better have the same type of experience in terms of hit rates and stuff like that. You can't give them the experience of sitting under these massive screens, but you can at least give the same game. So I think there's a big one over there. And also knowing your bet. So if I'm betting when I'm at a physical machine, 50 cents a bet, don't put me online and suddenly I'm doing $1.50 a bet. Make sure that it's one-on-one. You know everything about me, therefore carry certain things across. If I reacted pretty well to this game because possibly it's the sound, the theme song of the Britney Spears game that was so big, like Hit Me Baby One More Time, and that game did incredibly well in land-based, but when you try and move it to mobile, there was some experience that was missing.
Maybe there's a question on the back of that quickly. So do you think then that, even if a company figures out, like you were saying, what kind of proper adjacency should be used to determine what a similarity is, because you know that it's so different. So maybe what you want to do sometimes is produce something that looks nothing like the online, or find a proper measure or a vector that deals with the opposite, the anti-pattern almost. And that will give you then some entry point to say, well, is this person somebody that might like or not? I mean, what do you think of that? How would that work? It could be an experiment to figure out how many people...
It's a good experiment, but these players are fickle. Many of these players are betting because they feel lucky. They feel lucky about something. It's luck. But they are attracted to certain things about the game. Figuring out what that certain thing is and hooking that player and nudging them along with that certain hook, that certain kind of bait that's on the hook. It could be the color, the genre of the game, the tempo, anything, chasing this community bonus chest, whatever it is. Finding that and experimenting with that. I'm unsure about doing the complete opposite, so I don't want to chase them away. But if I am doing the complete opposite, I need to get them down the right path pretty early. But A/B testing has come an incredibly long way, and the fork of the A/B test generally finds out what's the right route to push the customer. So what are the opportunities? And I know I've spoken about some of these already, but...
Really, maybe want to share it again. I think it went off.
Oh, did it lose the share? Okay, 1 moment. Oh, it did. Yeah, sorry about that. On current slide. Okay, and share. Oh, it did, yeah. 1 moment. Is it there?
Yes, AI opportunities in the gaming business.
Cool. Yeah, so AI opportunities in the gaming business. And I think folks don't understand how expensive it is to acquire a player. And I'm specifically understand land-based is really difficult. And how do you get them to go to a specific hotel, to a specific place, to a specific machine in a maze of machines? And online's the same. You have to acquire the player. And there's a certain acquisition cost. That marketing or acquisition cost could be $100 per person. That's just your acquisition, to $400 for some sportsbook player. If you incorrectly spend that acquisition cost and this person moves away, it's going to be very difficult to get that money back. Once you draw the person in, you now have to keep them there, right? That's the retention side. You would do that via right bonusing. Right bonusing is important because there are places in the world, there are countries where taxation is on bonusing as well. So the operator that's offering the bonus is taxed on a certain amount of that. You don't want to give everybody $100. You want to give the right people the right amount of money, bring them in with the amount, and then increase the bonus as you're moving forward. That's going to be important. They also have things like brand churn management. So I like the Pink Lady as my casino. I've played all the games. I can tell that my velocity of bets are starting to move downwards. I'm going to probably jump to another casino. I need to be very quick to bring that player to a casino that I also own. It's just a different brand of the same casino with slightly different games, with slightly different ambience in terms of music and colors and the way that I actually chat to you and talk to you and bring you in. And once you finish with that casino, I need to get you to another one. Guess what? I own that one as well, but it's also branded and themed and customized for you so that you can move forward. To get that, you need a lot of data, and you need to understand thy player immensely and nudge, push in the right direction towards your specific casino online. Gathering the right amount of information there is massive. And then land-based, same thing. There's opportunities while they're at the machine, while they're walking away from the machine, while they're in their room, while they're still in the hotel, while they're in the vicinity of the actual casino itself, maybe memories in terms of playback. This is how you won, keeping certain things that they can re-experience. But you have massive opportunities in land-based after leaving the EGM, never mind while you're at the EGM. Sportsbook, wow. Sportsbook is kind of weird because a lot of folk will wager with the heart. Love Liverpool. I'll bet Liverpool no matter what. I'll offer you a cash out, an early cash out. Liverpool's leading 3-1. If you cash out now, you'll get half your bet. I'm not going to probably accept that. How do I make that side wager better? Pre-bet is the game hasn't started, so I've got an opportunity to, prior to this massive event starting, get you to place a wager on maybe an outcome of win-lose, as simple. Or in play, while you're watching the game. Some of the biggest things out there is, when you're watching a game, you're with friends, wherever you are, you're watching the game, and 95% of your attention should be the game. And 5% attention should be the ability to pick up the phone, place a wager, look at a wager, and move on. Cricket, 8 hours or whatever. Soccer, 90 minutes at least, where you've got this defined period that you can influence and engage with a particular player. So there are mechanisms that one could use if you know thy player and what they're doing at that particular minute, second, whatever it is, and intervene. But intervene correctly, because again, especially if it's in play, they're watching the game. So their time is valuable. If you're intervening all the time, well, I'm just going to turn you off. But if you're offering the right odds at the right time, I'm going to place a wager. I think Sportsbook is an amazing place to make some money with AI. And then if you're online, I kind of spoke about that, to maximize your enjoyment, the gratification, the rate of play, the spend amount, the stickiness. I want to stick to this genre of games. I only play games that are on your top 10 list. I only play promoted games. I only play games where my bonus is double. That's easy for the online side of things. And then one that I know I've spoken to Jay about, which is AI for good. Okay, so we have this thing called problem gamers. I also had a hard time being in the gaming industry because people become destitute and lose all their cash. How do you know whether someone has a high probability of being a problem gamer? Not after the fact, I've already lost everything. How do I do this? Well, it's very difficult because if I slow you down on my casino, you're only allowed certain bet sizes, you're only allowed N number of bets per second, your reels take longer to spin. All I do is I jump to another casino. Oh, it's not going to help much. But given that the states at a state level is getting people to register and do various things, and they do geofencing, so you can only play in the state of New Jersey. Well, there's some central information there that will understand what your net worth is. I'll put that in brackets. And I can then kind of evaluate your rate of play, your spend amount, the amount you've gone down, the amount you've gone up, your hours of play, when you're playing. And I can maybe intervene in some shape or form, ensure that you don't become a problem gamer. There are businesses in the States that oversee all of these things. And I think there's an opportunity there for AI to do good.
But Brendan, some of the conversation before was around the fact that digital addiction, especially in a digital setting, is so incredibly tough to monitor because of exactly that issue. You don't have access to this data often. And many companies are trying to monetize and maximize their customer lifetime value and profit ratio. So it creates this enormously conflicting view as to what's good for you right now is not necessarily good for your patron or for the person visiting your facility. And that creates a weird kind of equilibrium. And that's why I still think that some of the work we've been talking about around finding that personal equilibrium of engagement, because you might have a guy like the one case we looked at was somebody that spent a huge amount of money, disproportionate, and it was within their wealth range, where somebody else spent a tiny amount and it then put them into trouble. So you just don't know most of the time.
It's super hard, Jay. It's super hard. In the UK, there was a highly publicized case where a sportsbook, someone was avid sportsbook gamer, And obviously the loyalty team knew this because they could see the activity that this person is generating. They give them bonuses, they spend double the bonus, they put more money. This is a whale, someone you need to look after because they're a great customer. So you chase them and you say, here's more bonus. If you play this, I'll give you more bonus and more bonus. But they didn't know that this specific person actually was, selling their house and their car, and they were selling their parents' house and car. They were doing illegal activities. And so, where's the onus there? Is it, should the sportsbook reward agent not have done that? How would that person have known that they are pushing them over the limit? So that information wasn't available to understand the financial position of, and so there was this massive dynamic and turmoil within the company. Our agents that go out there and do reward and bonus management for retention, how can we ensure that we're not pushing somebody over the limit? And Jay, it's like you said, that's incredibly difficult. But I have to say, what it did do is people now understand that you have to accept that there's problem gaming. You have to accept that there's a possibility that you're sending someone into.
But that's why I quite like that thing around an archetype or a personality, because if you can get somebody, even if you do a false positive, and part of your early stages of defining the false positive to say that somebody looks like they are getting into trouble, your stage one could be educational and nudging and reminding them of things rather than just saying, well, I'm going to cut you off because it might
like that.
learn. Yeah, so it's almost like you need to find a structured approach to take an intelligent view on the human in the system. I mean, isn't that the problem of it? We only look at it mathematically or profit-wise rather than looking at the fact that there is a human that actually on the other end of this line will be affected by whatever I do.
If you speak to anybody in the online business, I suppose land-based as well, is the US is an incredible amount of sportsbook players. But those sportsbook players are very difficult to tempt across into slots. Now, those that have been successful to move them, migrate them to slots, because that's where the real money is actually made, they found that little something that was able to nudge them across the line. So actually, I understand the excitement of sport, but here's a different type of excitement that's going to get your heart rate up, that you're going to enjoy, that you're going to see as entertainment, that you're going to be sharing maybe at a community level your results. Those that have done that and identified that and nudged them along that line correctly have done well. If you can solve or even half solve that problem and take the sort of 1 million sports bettors and even get 10,000 out of that, you've solved a massive monetary flow problem.
Something worth pursuing. Or worth thinking about more or working on more, because our current archetypes still need more work.
Yeah, and then kind of just moving forward on that, it's kind of the AI for good I spoke about. And then as you can tell, there's a few things that are moving in the industry now. I'm only going to focus on player agents. You can imagine player agents like jackpot. Find me the fastest increasing online slot jackpot with an unusually high payout value. Okay, daily this thing's going to give you all the various slots, either in a specific casino or across all casinos, and it will provide you with that information. Then it will guide you to where that particular casino is, where that particular slot is, how much you should put in. There's lots of guidance that can happen with these player agents. Sport, well, I like golf, right? So find me the PGA Tour player who consistently performs higher than their odds over the past 4 events. Okay? But continuously help me see what's going on while the event is on. Is he better than his odds? Is he less than his odds? How can I make some money out of this? And then find me the top performing themed Egyptian 5-reel slot in New Jersey, which has a wheel bonus. A lot of folk love wheel bonuses, especially here in the States. Many games don't actually have that, so they don't want those games. And then every day, give me, which ones are out there. That seems to be starting to do pretty well. I think the power is in not just AI and the development of games, but the real-time aspect of AI and how that can be used for nudging in certain directions. I've seen lots of AI tools, but they're too far after the fact, or they're predicting some stuff on data that's kind of outdated. So getting that right, and I understand that there's some challenges around that, and some tests need to be done, and some of it could go down the wrong branch, but that's where the power lies. Moving forward, Jay, I think you and your company are well positioned to move into that role.
And I think if we can create a reliable archetypal system that can consistently generate some kind of reference score for somebody, so when I communicate with you, I've learned enough about you. I don't even have to get to a point where it's everything about you as an individual, because you might not want to get to a point where it's hyper personalized, because I think, and that's often what happens. And the same with if you think about music, people typically like one genre, but they might get, entertained by something that's on an adjacency that they might never have liked. So that means finding the appropriate kind of, what is the most novel thing that a person will act on? And we've been working on some of those algorithms in real time so that you can find what those things are that will make the person enlightened, not just the fact of what they like all the time. So you don't want to have the concept of people who play this, play that. It's not about, I've got to know what Bren does and what he wants to do. I see that every now and then he wants something that's far outside of what he might like. Let me recommend it to him and then see if I can figure out the edges of his personality.
Perfect.
So that's, yeah. Yeah, I think
that's the magic. Jay, that's the magic. You put that out there, that's the magic. Absolutely, that's the magic. I know the music industry has done that, as you said, and I have lots of apps now that just play music for me. And sometimes I know they're throwing in some strange music. I'm like, whoa, that's kind of out of genre. But hey, it's quite nice. I actually like that. Let me listen to that. And I actually click on it and I listen to it for a bit. Then I don't like it and I go back to my current. So yeah, it's obviously doing similar stuff.
Yeah, continuous experimentation.
Really, discussion.
Are there any questions? I see we don't have any more in the chat. Moritz said thank you for the insights. But yeah, if anyone has any questions, otherwise we can close off. No?
So,
No.
how's your new gaming company going? Are you building one?
Last year, I spent last year with a partner pitching to create a new company. It was difficult, and I learned some lessons with regards to, being honest around what your delivery capability could be. We often saw presentations that promised a company that can produce 20 games a month and something ridiculous. And if you understand how to develop games, that's not possible. We've stepped away from that right now. I'm doing a lot of mentorship, but I am looking for AI companies that are going to add value in the gaming world, because I don't want to leave the gaming world. I really enjoy it, and I think it's inspiring. It gets my heartbeat going.
I'm looking forward to doing some more stuff with you. It'd be nice to conquer part of the space. Good.
Any other?
Great, thanks.
Ryan, you have a question. Go for it.
Hi, guys. That was really interesting talk. Thank you so much. Super quick question. It's actually so funny that this topic has come up. One of my colleagues has just spoken about in-play sports betting as well, literally within the week. He essentially uses one for football where you get live statistics and probabilities during the game. My question is, do you foresee this sector growing quite exponentially, or do you think there'll be any legal issues or anything that will come up around this? Not really.
There's always going to be sort of legal challenges, but this is going to stick. Having my personal AI with me, like my little angel on my shoulder, that's going to guide me and give me info that there's no ways I'm going to calculate. It's just too difficult, is here to stay. I bet with my heart, but this person over here is going to bet with his head. So this is to stay. This will absolutely be there. It's basically making sure that this AI is trustable and has the up-to-date information. It has to be up to date. And once we get to that stage, fully trusted. I use a whole bunch of AI bots all the time. And they help. I know my son uses them as well now and again for choosing the right players in his fantasy league. And so does every other team member. So that's great. But I want the in-play version. If you've seen some of the events, take soccer, and you look at the markets within in-play soccer, is the goal going to be scored in the next minute? Oh, okay. Well, how am I going to work that out? Statistically, you can work that out. Ball possession, player strength in terms of the high kick, cornering. There's a ton of stuff. And I could probably help. I can't calculate that. But my little AI can give me a percentage. Maybe that's the right way. And it could nudge me in other directions as well. But it's my personal AI. So it's probably going to nudge me in the right direction. I still make the decision though. I think a lot of challenges are going to come down to, did you make the decision? Did you press the enter key, or is it pressing the enter key? Is an AI military bot pulling the trigger, or is somebody else telling it to pull the trigger?
Thank you.
Pleasure, Ryan.
Bren, thank you so much for today and sharing your insights and the presentation and everything. I think it was a really great discussion. And thank you everyone for joining and asking questions.